David, nice to have you again for another interesting section in Kubernetes. This is the
Thanks
third
for
time
having me
round.
again.
It's a pleasure. How's it doing there?
Yeah, fine. As I said, it's the end of the day, nearly the end of the week, so I'm okay. We have a nice meeting. I will talk about technical stuff that I have to talk about, so it's fine by me. And then it will be the end of the week afterward, so even better.
Even better, yeah. So the last shot of the day, then tomorrow is already weekend for you. To me, I like Formula One, so I'm happy that this Saturday I'll be cool enough with watching Formula One, the first race of the season. Cool, nice. Yeah. So thanks for having you again. So we welcome you again to my Azure community, and
Yep.
yeah, for the first time this year. So this is continuation of the event we started. Remember the series you
Yep.
gave last year, and this is the last part of it. So it's a pleasure to have you. And today we'll be talking about isolating microservices in Kubernetes and
Yep.
AKS. Yeah. So yeah, the floor is yours. And yeah, once again,
Okay.
it's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks. Okay, so let me share my screen so I can get started. So, or the screen. Let me put that in. I put that in presentation. Yes, it's even working in presentation. So as you said, this is about isolating, protecting microservice in AKS. This is a direct follow-up for the last time about networking on the Azure plane, because we discussed a lot of things regarding networking for Kubernetes in Azure. Now we are moving a little bit deeper into the microservice layer, because we want to understand all of it. Okay, so what we'll talk about, well, first we'll introduce why we are having again another network session about Kubernetes on Azure. So we'll start by saying discussing why NSGs, network security groups, are not enough to protect microservice. After that, we will have a look at native network protection in Kubernetes. I will do a little bit of demonstration about that. Then we'll talk about what is a service mesh, which is another option, but not only Kubernetes native for protecting microservice. And we'll finish with what we can do with the modern CNI, naming Cilium. I'll try to do not too much technical stuff, but there are still a lot of concepts, so we'll talk about that. Okay, so let's get started. Why NSG? So the N is small. I don't know why. why NSG are not enough to protect microservice? About that, remember last time we talked about the IKS architecture in the Azure plan, and we said that we have the control plane with the worker plane, which in its way, on its own, lives in a virtual network. Okay.
Yeah.
That being said, that means that the nodes are protected in this virtual network in a dedicated subnet by a network security group, right? As you can see on this schema, the network security group is applied at the node level and not at the subnet level, because we are not doing it. Kubernetes is doing it for ourselves, in our place. Okay, it's nice and easy, because when you create new stuff in Kubernetes, Kubernetes will automatically update the rules on that place, so that you can get you can get the proper flows opening. Okay, let me show you that. If we go on your screen, sorry, if you go on one cluster that is already available, if we check into the properties, let's not go into the properties. Let's start with the service and ingress. So I have a bunch of services already deployed on my Kubernetes server, which, okay, let's sign in again then. Okay, why not? So let me refresh. Sometimes it's happening. Well, not always, but sometimes. I guess this is the Demo effect. Okay, so as I was saying, I have a bunch of service available already. One specifically that I want to show you about, which is in the demo namespace, which is called demo. Okay, and as you can see, it has a public IP address over there. If we go into the properties, we will be able to find the background resource group of our Kubernetes cluster, which is where Kubernetes creates all of its resources. And as you can see, we have a bunch of public IP. Let's try this one. I'm not sure which one it is. So you can see it seems to be the same IP as the one I had before. So it was created by Kubernetes, it exists. But that's not enough because we need to open the flows. And fortunately, Kubernetes, as I said, is doing it for us. And as you can see here, I have 2 flows opening that were named with a name that I cannot even write because it was done by the cluster itself. Okay, so that's the one. As a matter of fact, that is the one that I showed you earlier. And as you can see here, it's opening the flow 80. Okay, so that is done by network security group, but that's for exposing service. But what if we want to do not just exposition, but micro segmentation? So remember, when we have Kubernetes service, we have the nodes, which we manage, and then we have the pods which are inside the which are inside the Kubernetes plan. Okay, and so those pods, if you want to go further into the security, we don't want to just limit ourselves into the exposition on the internet. We want to be able to say, let's say this pod should be able to talk to this one, but not this one or this one. How can we do that? Well, it depends. Remember, we discussed last time about the CNI, which is the network definition for how the pods will get addresses into the cluster. Okay, either we have KubeNet, or we have Azure CNI or other options which are similar to one of the other. And with KubeNet, we have an isolation. So the pod over there have their own IP address plan, which is different from this one. Well, in this way, we have the IP address plan, which is shared with the VNet. So if we have network security group on the, as I said, on the nodes, we cannot apply any security on the pods with NSG because they are at this level. Okay, and then there will be in this case they will get IP address from the virtual network. But remember, the network security group is not on the subnet; it's on the nodes. So the pods are not impacted by this. Okay, but nevertheless, if we wanted to, we could say, hey, let's put an additional network security group on the subnet, and then we are good to go. Yeah, well, no, it would be too fine. If we do that, the problem that we have with Kubernetes resources, such as pod, is that they live and then they die, and then they get a new IP address. So if you want to have granular segregation, you need to know the private IP address. And what I just said is that they change. So you cannot use an NSG on the subnet level because you won't be able to manage that dynamically because Kubernetes is not doing it. So you will need to do it manually. And let's say it will be a nightmare. It's impossible to do because you will create a lot of stuff and they will change their IP address. Okay. And anyway, we don't like to do Azure CNI because Azure CNI consume a lot of IP and you know your network guys, they don't want to give you many IP. So you cannot ask for a big range over there and do a lot of Kubernetes. So you will tell me, okay, but then let's do KubeNet or another CNI which is with overlay. And then you would say, we can maybe protect our workload with an NSG. Well, same apply here. Depending on the CNI, either it's KubeNet, so then the NSG has no clue about how to open traffic on that, so we cannot secure flows between pods inside of this because the rules are applied with the NSG. Remember, at the NIC level. So the pod does not have a NIC inside the VNet, so the NSG doesn't work. Okay, so well, we cannot do that much things, and anyway, again, we would not want to do that manually because it's impossible to keep in time. Okay, we don't manage Kubernetes objects at the pod level. We manage them with the controller, which are either deployment or stateful set or other nice stuff that we have in Kubernetes that have absolutely no clue that they live inside the node on a virtual network. So it doesn't work. Okay, so we cannot do that with NSG. So how can we do that? Because this is typically the question. We need to find a way to secure the flows between the pod. Okay, so that's where we go back to the protection in Kubernetes. So for that, we have network policies. Network policies, if I click on that, maybe I can click on that. Yes, I can click on that. I can also zoom in. Okay, network policies are native object in Kubernetes. Native, depending on what you call native. But anyway, network policies are a means to give you an option to protect stuff inside Kubernetes. We'll see in details how it works after that. Network policies will give us one way to do what we want to do. They can act either on ingress or egress traffic, but they have a requirement. We need to have a network plugin, a CNI, that supports network policies. If we have a CNI that does not support network policies, you can create network policies. It won't work because the CNI won't be able to apply any traffic management on your pod. So then we need to have one that works. And so do we have a CNI that works for network policies in Azure? Lucky us, we do. Do I have another page over there? It was this one. This one. So if I check my AKS cluster and I go at the overview level, oh no, this one would be a good example, but you can see here in the networking page, depending on what you have, you will have a network policy which is defined with the provider. So if we use either KubeNet or Azure CNI, you will be able to choose a network policy provider between two choices. Let me show you maybe over there. I will show you that on the Terraform page. Terraform registry. Terraform registry over there, and then both provider, and then Azure, and then documentation, and then container, and then we should be able to find the Kubernetes cluster. No, not this one, sorry. The cluster I said, Kubernetes cluster. Okay, and if I do a research because there are too many parameters, network. Is it somewhere over there? Network profile. Network public. No, not this one. So that's why I looked on the node profile. Network plugin, and in the network plugin, you can specify network policy, and you can choose between Calico, Azure, and even Cilium, which is fine because we are doing Cilium, but not the way they are proposing it. Anyway, so this means that fortunately for us, we can specify whatever the CNI that we configure at cluster creation time. We can choose a provider to create network policy. Fine. So we do have a way to secure our microservice, which are in pods or in namespace through the network policy. How does it work? I will click on that because it will be useful afterward, and then I will move on. So the network policy with this nice table is an object in Kubernetes that is living with the API version networking kate i.io/v1. The kind is network policy, and then we specify a name, a namespace, because everything is namespace. So, well, a lot of things are namespace in Kubernetes, and then we have the spec. In the spec, that's where it becomes to be a little less user-friendly. we need to understand what it means. And then we will write a nice YAML file, and I will show you a few of those, and hopefully we'll be clear on that. So we need to find a way to select on which pod we want to apply the network policy. So for that, we will use, we will use the pod selector section, in which we'll find a way to match labels that are defined on pods, because you may not know that if you're not familiar with Kubernetes, but in Kubernetes, everything is loose coupled and everything is labeled so that you can associate stuff between them with labels. So pods will have labels, potentially namespace will have labels also, and then we will be able to select pods by referring labels. Okay, let me explain that. If I show you an example, I need to zoom that also. So if I take an example of this one, look at that. If you can see over there, this is a deployment. A deployment is an object that contains pods, and the pods are explained over there. So you can see here, I have for my pods, I have a label which is called app, and which has the value demo. Okay. So if I want to refer to I want to refer to some pods with that, then I need to use those labels in my network policy. Okay, moving on. The first thing that we would like to do when we want to secure our environment is to define maybe some default network policy, because by design we don't have network policy defined. So we want to work on a way to maybe define that we will want to deny all traffic at the namespace level. So we will do that. This is a network policy. So as you can see, API version network policy. This time we have the name default deny ingress. We don't specify here the namespace, which means that it will be applied to the default namespace, but I will show you one that is applied to the demo namespace, because I want to block traffic on the demo namespace. And then, as you can see, we have pod selector and policy type ingress. So this one is peculiar, because we do pod selector, and as you can see, there is curly braces, then we have nothing in it. So it means that we select nothing, and when we select nothing, in fact, we are selecting everything. That's written somewhere in the documentation. That's something that we need to understand. And once you know that if you want to select all pods, you do that. Okay. Then you can see that this policy is of type ingress. So because it is of type ingress, it means that it will block, it will, and well, it's of type ingress, but we don't specify any traffic. So that means that we don't allow any traffic. Okay. So we select all pods to allow in ingress no traffic. So that's a default policy that is interesting. Let's see if we can do that, if you want. Let me do that like that. So I have already this deployment. I will start by doing this network policy. No, this service is this deployment is exposed with this service. So if I do kubeconfig, kubecontrol get services in the namespace demo, I should get a service. As you can see, this is a load balancer with the public IP that I showed you earlier. Okay, so let's try that. If I do a curl of that, no, not that, curl minus I minus x get, and this is HTTP, and this is that. Paste. You can see I have an answer, which means that I could probably do that on the portal directly, on the navigator directly. If I'm doing that, you get something. Oh, maybe I should. Yes, non-secure, but this is welcome to Nginx. It means that as I planned, it's open. Okay, but I don't want it to be open, because I said that I want to secure microservice. So how can I do that? I need to first put in place my default network policy. So look, just the difference here. I said the same thing, pod selector, all of them. Yeah. Okay, because I specify none of them, and traffic non-allowed, so that means that I'm not allowing anything. And then I'm specifying default namespace because I want to apply that to the default namespace. So that means that all the pods in that namespace, so the pods that I showed you earlier, will be included in this network policy, and then I will block all traffic. So let's try that. This one. Okay, the network policy was created. Let's verify that. Get network policy -n demo. And then we have it. We have a default ingress. What does it mean? Can I do a curl again? I can, but as you can see, it does not seem to answer, which means that it's failed. Okay, nice. I have another thing that is planned. Let me check that. Hopefully it's still working. Get pod -n client. So I prepare the specific pod which is running into a namespace which is called client2. And if I'm doing get namespace client -o YAML, what I wanted to show you on this one, look, I have a label on my namespace which is called app client. Okay, so let's try to not authorize the traffic from outside, which is what I showed you on my navigator, but just from the client namespace, because as I said, I want to allow microservice together between them. Okay, so let's try that. I will create a new network policy, which is defined here, and we will try to have a look at that. So look, we will create a network policy. Fine by me. It will be in the namespace demo, because this is where we want to apply our network filtering. Okay, this network policy will get it the name allow from client NS for namespace. Okay, so this is the easy part, and then we need to move on with what we want to do. So first thing first, the pod selector, we want to select on which pod this network policy is applied. Which pod it select. Okay, so we will this time select the pod by selecting match label demo. So remember, in my deployment, I have the app demo. So with this network policy, I'm specifying that this network policy will be applied on all the pod that fill this condition. Okay, if I specify app Toto, it won't work on this pod. It will be for all the pod with this label. Okay, then I will specify the policy type. It's ingress because I want to allow ingress traffic. Okay, and then in the ingress, I want to allow the traffic from a namespace selector which match the label app client. And this is what I showed you. So all the pods inside the namespace that match this label should be okay. So let's try that. Copy pass. Oh no, before doing that, let's verify that. So let's verify that for now it's not working, because if it's working already, it means that I haven't shown you anything. So so get pod and client. I do have my pod. So if I want to execute a curl from inside the pod, I'm doing a exec command. Okay, exec -n client to specify the namespace, then the name of my pod, which is client2. Okay, then I'm doing -- to specify the command, and then I will do my curl command. Curl -ai -x get HTTP. I forgot to get the name, the IP address of the service internally. So get service -n demo. So earlier I used this public IP, but here, because I'm inside the cluster, I will use the private IP. Or I can use either the private IP, but I could also use the DNS name. So we will do both. Okay. So let's go back over there. Okay. And it's not working. If not, we will have the display page as earlier. Okay, so let's not wait, because I'm not a patient guy. So let's do that. Let's just, for the purpose of defining how it works with DNS, we have an internal DNS resolution, so I will do that with DNS, okay? So this is demo for the name of the application /demo SVC. No, this is demo for the name of the service, demo for the name of the namespace, SVC for service, and then cluster .local, if I'm correct. Still not working. Perfect. So this is as expected. Let's try again with our policy now. Copy pass. Let's do that. Okay. So now I have two network policy, and we can see the detail: default pod selector, none, default allow client app demo. Okay, perfect. Now let's try that again. And it's working. Let's try that somewhere else. If I'm doing it from my computer, I do have this command there. Still not working. So we did it. We were able to manage micro-segmentation, well, a way to secure our pods. So that means that we can do micro-segmentation with network policy. But I don't know about you, but this is not very user-friendly, don't you think? Because okay, we've done that, and it seems simple because I spend a lot of time doing that, so it would feel that it's easy, but it's not. Not well, it's not that easy. So we can do that, but it lacks a user-friendly way of seeing what's happening, and maybe something a little bit more comfortable to have some nice dashboard and stuff like that. So that's not ideal, even if it does the job. There are other limitations on that. We cannot do much more than level 4 filtering. So that means that we need to specify IPs at one point or labels or stuff like that. But we cannot authorize specific FQDN or stuff like that. So if you want to have L7 filtering, well, we cannot. Okay, so
Okay.
Does it mean that we are stuck with that? No. Luckily, we have some other thing that we can do to protect microservice. So we have the network policy. This is native. As long as your CNI is working, if you want to do something else, you can. So just so you know, you can see that on the spec, we can specify a namespace selector or a pod selector to allow the traffic from or to, depending if we are doing ingress or egress. And then we can also specify IP blocks. So I could do an authorization to allow only my public IP with the network policy, and then it will be it would work. But this is not what I wanted to do, so that's not what I'm doing currently. Okay, so moving on. How can we go a little bit further along the way? We can think about service mesh. You will tell me what is service mesh, and that's what we will discuss. So we will not discuss too much about service mesh because we only have 1 hour, and currently we have half an hour left. So I don't want to spend all the night on that because I would need at least that. So we'll just have an overview of the service mesh, and I will show you some stuff and why it's interesting. Okay, so we'll take an example of service mesh such as Consul. Consul from HashiCorp. But first, we will define what is a service mesh. So a service mesh from the service mesh interface specification, which is the same way as for CNI or CSI or Open Container Initiative. This is a standard that defines how the service mesh specification should be standardized. So that's something that has been done, and Consul was following that, so that we had the standards for service mesh. I'm saying was because the service mesh initiative has been archived because it's redundant with another project which is related to the gateway API in Kubernetes. So I will not go further into that. I just want to show you what we can do with service mesh and why it's interesting. So in the case of Consul, the service mesh is a way to mesh the service together so that we can secure service-to-service communication and then eventually have mutual TLS and traffic shaping and interesting network stuff. As I said, again, more network stuff. The problem with that is well, we need to install a service mesh and we need to understand it. Okay, so I will show you a few things after that because I do have this service mesh installed, but we'll not go that much further in it. In the case of Consul, we have a service mesh that provides service discovery, because once the service mesh are registered on the when the service are registered on the service mesh, we can find them on the service mesh. We can have health checking, secure communication, and specifically in Consul, we can have multi-data center, but that's not something that is generic to all service mesh. Okay. A service mesh such as Consul will be installed with, I think it's the next slide, with the Helm repository, usually with the Helm chart, so that we don't have to manipulate the complexity of all the objects. I will show you that I will show you that now, as a matter of fact. So let's do that. If you have a look at my environment, if I'm doing a get ns for namespace, no, not mass, ns. You can see that I have a namespace which is called Consul. So let's get all in my Consul namespace, and I have a bunch of things. So all of that. So I have some pods, I have some services, I have some deployments, some replica sets, some stateful sets. All of that, I have to deploy it at one point. Fortunately, I can do that with an Helm chart, and that's the case for all the service mesh. The installation is not the hard part. The hard part is the configuration. Okay, so how do we do the configuration? Let's go back over there. Okay, so that's what I showed you just there. When we create the deployment for the service mesh, we'll have a bunch of resources, and then we will work with our services that will be meshed in our service mesh, and we will have an additional container deployed on the side of all of our container in our pods, which is an Envoy sidecar, or Envoy being a proxy service that is deployed from the service mesh, and it will manage the network communication between services. So that's interesting because we can proxify all the network communication automatically through the service mesh. So it's quite interesting for security. The bad part in that is that we have a sidecar, so this is an additional container, so additional resources. So that's not ideal necessarily all the time. If we want to onboard an application with the service mesh, we'll just add an annotation usually, and this annotation in the case of Consul will specify this one, and Consul connect inject true. That means that we will add the connect injection, which is the sidecar that I mentioned earlier. Okay. If I go there and I go there, so I showed you that already. This is the configuration that I need to pass to Helm if I want to create my cluster, my Consul cluster. And then once I have my Consul server, I have something like that on the UI. So I can show you that because I did it. So moving back over there, if I'm doing that, if I'm doing get services minus M Consul, as you can see, I have a Consul UI with a load balancer, which is normally a load only for me. And if I'm showing you another page over there, you can see that I have a bunch of services that are not working well, to be honest, but that's not the point, that are registered on my Consul. And I have also my node instance, which in turns are 3 different pods running on each of my nodes. Okay, this is a prerequisite. Consul needs to have at least to have a node number of nodes. So either 1 or 3 or 5 or 7. If we have 3, we have a fault tolerance for 1. If we have 5, we have still a fault tolerance for we have a fault tolerance for 2. And if we have 7, we have still a fault tolerance for 2. So we don't really care about that, but we could manage that through the configuration. The interesting part here is that if I click on service, I can see my service, and I have some graphical view. and I can add something called intention in control, but this is traffic policy, if I'm correct, in service mesh in general. It allows us to manage service between not service traffic between service, and we do have a graphical view from the UI. So, okay, so here you can see that this service is supposed to be able to access the front end and the public API. So that's nice. That means that we have a way of doing that. Okay. We have also other stuff that we can see. We can define some traffic shaping, as I said, and the intention allows me to define the traffic between my my service. Okay. Well, that's not fine. Funny. I guess there's something missing over there. But okay. So that's interesting because if we go away from the difficulty of deploying the service mesh and understanding how it works, at the end we have something that is a little bit more graphical, and still we will need to manage YAML object, because this is Kubernetes. There's no point we can avoid that, but we can still get a UI and have a graphical view. Okay. The other interesting part that I don't have here is that you can configure for all of your service mesh an integration with something for monitoring, such as what is it? Prometheus. So you can configure Prometheus, and then you would get metrics on the service already in this dashboard. So it becomes a very interesting tool for managing traffic shaping, authorization, but also observability. So that's why service mesh is quite interesting, but it's absolutely not limited to just the traffic management. Still, it does the job. Okay, so we have this additional feature that allows us to secure our traffic together. Okay, so we have some details about how we can create intention here. I don't want to be too detailed on that, but the interesting part here is that we can define service to service authorization, and we can go further than just the IP level filtering, because we can define methods such as get, put, post, delete, add, and stuff like that. So this is level 7 filtering. So this is very interesting when we want to be more thorough on the micro segmentation. Okay, so that's one thing, but that's not something that we can do easily. We need to learn about that. So no more service mesh for today. Let's see what we can do. Oh, so this is an example of service intention, but just to be a little bit more specific. And so that's what I showed you earlier. So let's move on. Again, we get the visibility of the intention of the authorization that we do between our service into a UI, which is always better than just parsing a command line. I love command line, but well, at one point we need to have some dashboard, and this is one way of doing it. So this is not something that I want to do. Okay, so that's all for service mesh. But as I said, service mesh is complex. Is moving, is evolving, and the service mesh initiative has been archived in profit of the Gateway API Gamma project, which is supposed to use the service mesh stuff inside the Gateway API later. So the lucky things that we have is that a lot of modern service mesh are doing Gateway API, so it will be coupled. But anyway, let's not talk about Gateway API. This is to expose in service externally. And I said that we were talking about securing microservice with the inside the cluster. So we'll focus on that. So if we want to do something else, we can have a look at what we do with some modern CNI, which are much more modern. So just as a reminder, container network interface is well, the container network interface is again an initiative to define networking aspect into Kubernetes, and all the network provider in Kubernetes follow the specification that you have on this page. Okay, we have some well-known CNI such as Calico or Azure because we are using it sometimes, or Cilium, which is the one that we will talk about. So why do I want to talk about Cilium? Because Cilium is using extended Berkeley packet filter. And you will tell me, but what is it, this extended Berkeley packet filter? I am not an expert on that, so that's why we will not talk about that too much. Again, we don't have that much time. But this is an extension of the Berkeley packet filter, which allows to execute program, as it's written on this slide, in sandbox, meaning isolated from the OS, without adding kernel extension. So that means that, remember, when you are talking about Linux, when you want to add some stuff on your kernel, you need to do some extension and you need to have root privilege. Okay, but root privilege are one thing on premise, but are definitely out of the way in managed cluster because you don't access to the node. The node is managed by Kubernetes and is deployed automatically. So you cannot do that much stuff inside the managed cluster. So that's why eBPF is a good way to go because you can do some process with eBPF and you will interact in our case with the network interface to do some advanced stuff on the network. So that's quite interesting. This is a just-in-time compiler. So that means that we compile, not definitely, something, a program so that it can execute and access to the OS, but without really being accessing it. Okay, so that's quite interesting in terms of security. And if you can just remember this schema and have a look at the documentation, that's more than enough for this discussion today. Okay. So Cilium is an interesting project because it's using, as a CNI, it's using eBPF. And because it's using eBPF, it gives us a lot of nice features that we don't have elsewhere necessarily, such as observability on the network plan. We'll have a look at that after that. Advanced network policy, I will show you some example, and some authentication and some encryption. So a lot of advanced stuff with one thing, which is the CNI that you install anyway by default on your cluster at one point. So that's why on my environment, if you can see my cluster, let's clear my screen. For the -n system, you can see that I have a lot of reference to Cilium because I did install Cilium. Okay. Okay, no restart. Perfect. I was worried because I saw the 0, but it's not it's not a bad 0. It's a good one. So that being said, let's reduce that. We have some interesting considerations for Cilium. Remember when we discussed the CNI feature last time, we discussed that we have different ways to do Cilium inside Azure with either Azure CNI powered by Cilium or bring your own CNI or Enterprise Cilium. I didn't talk about this one, but just so you know, we have a way to install Enterprise Cilium either by the marketplace or by doing some upgrade once you have contacted Isovalent. Okay, so you can have an enterprise support for Isovalent. Just so you know, the Cilium powered by the Azure CNI powered by Cilium is a Cilium just in name. It does not do all the stuff that I showed you earlier, that I discussed earlier, and that I will show you. That's why we have a Cilium which is bring your own CNI. So this page maybe is interesting because we can compare the feature between the open source and the not open source. So you can see that in terms of observability, we have nearly everything except eBPF-based performance parser. Well, we have a lot of things, but not that much history or stuff like that. And in the service mesh, well, everything is available in the community version, so that's fine. Okay, so if you want to get Cilium, we need to create a cluster with Cilium. So we can do that quite easily. At the creation, we need to specify that we don't want to use a network plugin. So that's what I showed you by page. Is this one? Look, I don't have a network plugin, but still my cluster is working. That's what I did. Okay, so you can do that any way you want when you create your cluster, and then once it's created, you will have a cluster with either no network plugin or the Azure CLI powered by Cilium. Powered, I need to correct that. And you will need to specify a bunch of additional parameters. Anyway, that's not the most interesting part. It's quite easy to do once you install it, and then the interesting thing is what you can do with it. So as you can see on this page, here we have the network policy that we did earlier, right? So this is the same as the one we did earlier. And then here we have network policy with the API version Cilium, which means that this is not a network policy native in Kubernetes. This is the Cilium network policy. So that's why the kind is Cilium network policy. And as you can see, this one is kind of equivalent to this one, except that we are specifying this case match label org festive tech. But the interesting part is that we can do much more than just level 4. If we want to do network policy with level 7, we can with Cilium, or well, Cilium is the main example that I have in mind. I guess there may be some other, but the one that I know is Cilium. So here you can see a little bit on this slide. I can allow traffic to google.com, but nothing else. And then if I want to parse from my call service an FQDN being public or private, I can do that from the FQDN, which is again much more interesting than just IP-based traffic filtering. So that's one way of doing it. Another interesting thing that we'll have a look at just in a few seconds is observability. So we need to have the Cilium install visible. So if I have a look at that, if I'm correct, we should have a look at my configuration. So hopefully I do have it here. If you have a look at that, you can see that in my parameters, which are there, I use the no, so this is not that. This is there. I used Terraform to do it because, well, I'm lazy and I like to do it through Terraform. So I specify that I wanted to install the Hubble relay and the Hubble UI. So what does it mean? If I'm doing Cilium status first, I will get at one point the status. So everything seems to be working. So you can see that I do have Cilium, I do have an operator, and I have Hubble relay. I don't have Envoy daemon set, but I don't really care about that. I don't have cluster mesh, but that's not the point of today's discussion. So we don't really care. So if I want to have access to Hubble, I need to do some manipulation. I can do Cilium Hubble UI, and it should launch something or not. Yes, it's doing it. Is it working? Maybe not. So I should have something that refresh, but let's move back. If it's work, it will work. For now, it seems not. It seems that it's not working. So let's not bother about that. We have another way of doing it, but in command line. So I can do Cilium Hubble port forward and oh, so this is not this one. It should be like that. Okay, so here I do a Cilium port forward. So now I can do an Hubble observe. And I can see the traffic. Either it's allowed, either it's not. So here you can see that I have some traffic denied, some policy denied dropped. So I can have a look at my traffic. So again, another interesting part of the modern CNI, I can gain, sorry, I can gain observability on the network part, which is something that we lack with network policy. We don't know anything about the traffic. I don't know why my UI is not working, so I will close the page. I need to fix that. Anyway, okay, so we do have some network observability, and moving back to our service, we have additional features such as mutual authentication. So filtering is one thing, but if we want to secure our service together, we need to verify that they are who they said they are. So we can have an easy mutual authentication with something that is called the Spiff and Spire server, which is a way to create identity for our services and then use those identities so that we can authenticate our service together. So beyond just filtering, we can do even more with authentication. Okay, so that's one thing. And last thing, and then it will be the end, we have encryption. So we can do two different kind of encryption with Cilium, either IPsec, either WireGuard. So it will depend. I think I did only WireGuard on my own with AKS. So you need to validate to upgrade your configuration so that you have encryption type set to WireGuard, and then encryption not encryption set to true. And then when you check the traffic between your pod, you can find the encryption key, and then you can see that the traffic between your pod is encrypted. So granular network filtering with advanced network policy at the layer 7, authentication, encryption, and observability. So really everything that you want to secure a microservice. So I could not say that I want something else, which is why I end at this point, which is at the end. So if I have to wrap it up, remember, if you want to isolate microservice, the network layer in Azure is not enough. You need to find something in the Kubernetes plan. Okay. Second, if you want to do some basic traffic management inside Kubernetes, you have a means to do that with network policy. It's not very difficult. It's available on nearly all Kubernetes distribution, but the main limitation is that it's not really user-friendly. You manipulate YAML file, and then you do trial and error to verify that your traffic is working. So we do have some reference, such as this website, which is made by this guy that I don't know, but I know its site. So he's giving us some network policy receipt with some graphical view, and if we are following it, we can create our policy easy. Okay. If we want to go further into the security, at one point we will probably think about service mesh, because we want to have service discovery, traffic shaping, and all of this kind of stuff. And so we can think about a service mesh and implement that. The drawback of the service mesh is that it's difficult to do. Okay, and potentially it has an impact on the compute because we deploy sidecar. Last but not least, we have modern CNI such as Cilium, which rely on eBPF, and so we can do nearly everything that we did with other stuff. So that's probably the way to go. I did not say it, but you've seen in my configuration that we do have cluster mesh on the cluster potentially. So that means that we can mesh cluster together, and we do have an equivalent of service mesh with Cilium. So we don't even need to install another service mesh. We can do it from Cilium, and we can do all the stuff that I said: encryption, authentication, level 7 policy, and observability. So quite interesting. I have not yet become an expert in any service mesh, so I don't know what we can do with the service mesh for Cilium versus another one. But that's something that needs to be looked at when you want to go into production and you have a highly critical workload that needs to be protected. And that's all from me.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I have a question about the Selenium. Cilium.
Yep.
So it's like the open source environment for security networking. So in the case of AKS, and you're using network security group and all Azure network setup. So based on the topic you mentioned, that not just securing the NSG is okay. Are you suggesting that tools like the features or the offerings of Cilium is much better, or will improve your AKS?
What I mean is that NSG is not a way to go to protect your microservice. And then if you want to do something complete, modern, and much more powerful, Cilium is a good way to go. The fact that Cilium is open source is not in itself a problem, because you've seen that we have Azure CNI powered by Cilium, which means that there is a big partnership between Cilium and Microsoft. So that's not an issue. And even so, if you want to go in production, you can have the Isovalent support, which is the company behind Cilium, which is, by the way, being bought by Cisco, which means that Cisco have seen that it's quite interesting in terms of network, and that's why they are buying it. So yes, I would recommend using Cilium one way or another, but it means that you do know your stuff, because either you do bring your own CNI, so you must know your CNI, because if you're not, if you don't, you are alone in the support, or you need to pay as always, but nothing is ever free.
Exactly, yeah. So Microsoft should adopt this natively.
Yep.
Cool, that's nice. It's quite interesting section. Yeah. So what do you advocate for microservices if you look at using AKS environments for microservices?
At least I would recommend to have a look at network policy. It's not difficult. You've seen we did it in a few minutes. In reality, I spent a few days before, but once it's done, you know it's working. You should at least look at network policy. It's not that difficult to do, and this is native object. And then once you have much more thing in Kubernetes, I would go to something modern like Service Mesh or Cilium, because it's much more powerful. But start with network policy, and then you don't have to bother about micro-segmentation. You can do it with network policy, and it's easy. It's not ideal for troubleshooting, but it works. So you do some default network policy to deny, then you allow the service together when you want to do it. But it's easy because when you want to allow the service together, you have defined the service in Kubernetes. So you define the Kubernetes object service, in which you say, I want to expose on this service those pod, and I specify which port I allow. So then you just need to specify the same port, specify the same labels that are used in the service, and then you have your network policy. So that's easy in the end, once you are familiar with Kubernetes, but you need to do it.
Cool. Perfect. Wow. Interesting section, I must say. Yeah, good.
Any other question?
Another question from our side. I don't know if Oluwale Abiola has a question.
No, none at all.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, David, as usual, it's a pleasure to have you, and
yes,
thanks for an interesting section.
Pleasure shared.
Yeah, enjoy evening.
I will share with you the presentation once I find the time and send it to you, so you can share it with anyone you want. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Good night. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Bye, Abiola. Ciao. Yeah.